Good morning. My name is Gunay Evinch. I co-chair the Turkish American National Steering Committee. Welcome to TASC Roots. The Turkish American National Steering Committee represents Turkish Americans of all walks of life, nationwide, sea to sea. And we are based in Washington, D.C., and TASCTV started about in April, but we went on to 24/7 broadcasting very recently. And now we're on live stream nationwide, and we thank Uyanık TV for placing us on their menu, and you can watch us there live. And today we have a wonderful guest, and very appropriate also for Women's Empowerment Month, as we would like to refer to it as TASC. Welcome, Sibel Kulaksız from the World Bank Turkish American Professionals Association.
Thank you very much, Gunay Bey, for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Thank you, Sibel. May I call you by your first name?
Of course, of course.
Right. You can call me Gunay too. So the TASC Roots reaches out to Turkish American organizations for interviews, hosts them, and definitely the World Bank Turkish American Professionals Association is a very important group of best minds in the area of world economic development. We have done also programs with members of Congress and members of states, assemblies, senates, as well as heritage communities. We reached out to and had programs with the Macedonian American community, Albanian American community, Somali American community. Next week we will be with the Jewish American community, and we will have many more events. We look forward to hosting the Bosnian American community leadership. And so TASC Roots really is about the political empowerment, civic empowerment of the Turkish American community in all walks of American life. May that be politics, economics, business, social, as well as cultural exchange. So, Sibel'cim, please let us, first of all, talk about the World Bank Turkish Professionals Association, and also your background, how you came to the United States, you're working at the World Bank, and your educational and your professional background. We ask this because you are a role model to our girls, to our young women. I have a daughter. She's just turned 16. We had her sweet 16th birthday, and she'll be watching this when her virtual virtual learning class is over today. So yes, you are carrying the dreams of many, many girls in the Turkish American community.
Thank you, Gunay, for this great introduction. I'm a senior economist at the World Bank. I started working at the World Bank 20 years ago, based in Washington, D.C. I'm a macroeconomist. I work as a country economist in 3 continents. I started with Africa region, then Middle East and North Africa region, and currently I'm in South Asia region, responsible for 8 countries. I also did a lot of cross support to Turkey to support the Turkish economy through intellectual dialogue. So I closely follow up economic and social developments in Turkey as well. Prior to joining the World Bank, I worked as in the Turkish government for 5 years as a career expert in Ministry of Trade, Treasury, and also Turkish Petroleum International Company. At the World Bank, as a macroeconomist, I provide policy advice to governments on macroeconomic policy issues, economic growth, trade policy, fiscal management, labor market issues, and also regional integration issues. Most of us, the Turkish staff working in the bank and in the IMF, are mostly economists, but we also have engineers, lawyers working in both organizations. I have double master's degrees. I have a master's degree in economics. I also have a master's degree in international relations and international development from Johns Hopkins University. And I also completed an executive program on economic growth at the Harvard University Kennedy School of Government. So the Turkish Staff Association, I was very fortunate to lead the association in the past for 2 consecutive terms. So we do elections, both at the World Bank and IMF staff contribute, and we select the executive board. And during my time, I put a lot of emphasis on promoting the Turkish staff, the career developments. I partnered with the World Bank HR department, and they went to Istanbul, Izmir, and Ankara to universities, promoting the working at the World Bank to attract more Turkish students to the World Bank. Because at that time, I looked at the numbers and I saw that we were underrepresented, especially in higher grades. So this is one of the things I did, and now it has impact. We have a lot of young professionals from Turkey working at the World Bank. And we also promote Turkish culture. We had these great events. Currently, I'm not the chair, but the chair of the association and the team are organizing these great cultural events where they promote Turkish food, Turkish culture, and we get excellent feedback from those events. At the same time, we are providing a platform to contribute to addressing social and economic development issues in Turkey. Currently, we have more than 250 Turkish staff, both in the bank and the IMF, and in different sectors. So everybody in their own sector are following up, from what I see, the developments in Turkey, and they're providing input to ongoing discussions in their sectors of the economy. I think that this is a great contribution for all our Turkish staff here. We organize panels and conferences on emerging issues. For example, recently we delivered a panel with BioNTech, and this created a big impact already. We invited Dr. Özlem Türeci and Dr. Uğur Şahin, the co-founders of BioNTech, and we discussed with them the challenges and the opportunities on the way forward. And right after this event, our high-level World Bank management leadership got in touch with BioNTech, and they started discussing concrete plans to deliver vaccines to low-income countries in a speedy way. So our events are creating high impact, and we are very happy to see what is happening. We do the same events with the public sector leaders, private sector leaders from Turkey. For example, I'm the executive board member of the Istanbul Economist Summit. And we sometimes discuss on where we see the Turkish economy is going, where are the opportunities, how it can be strengthened. And it's great to see that private sector leaders are also thinking in Turkey on these issues, how to strengthen the real sector economy. And I find these intellectual discussions very valuable, these brainstorming. So in our expertise, we can contribute to ongoing thinking. So that's why I see ourselves as a bridge between here and Turkey, contributing to brainstorming on social and economic development issues and the proposed actions to address those issues.
Definitely, with BioNTech, I sometimes call it BioNTech, you have done an amazing job. First of all, I do commend all the cultural and social exchanges. It's a heart-to-heart bridging, and Turkish hospitality, Turkish food, Turkish music, and folk dance. It is welcomed by all. It really shows how much human potential there is for people to get together on the platform of cultural exchange and appreciation of diversity. So I commend that. TASC commends that from our heartfelt wishes to you. The BioNTech program that you put together obviously catapulted the World Bank into seeing how Dr. Türeci and Dr. Şahin will be able to help the World Bank's programs abroad in fighting COVID, in particular low-income countries. We are here a high-income country, and we are having severe problems getting the vaccine to the people. I can only imagine the challenge. We at TASC look forward to working with the World Bank, particularly on getting the good message of BioNTech out to the people. Can you tell us a little bit about the program that you had, some bullet points about what Dr. Özlem Türeci and Dr. Uğur Şahin talked about in your program?
Yes, sure. It was a great event. So Dr. Şahin said that we will have a challenge in the next 10 years on COVID-related issues. And I think that was one of the highlights, and it was all in all the newspapers the next day in Turkey. But how to manage this process is important. So now they doubled the production of vaccine. And we had discussions from the World Bank leadership in our event. They said that this is all great, doubling the production, but we are also facing logistics issues. So getting these vaccines to countries and delivering them and making sure that people are vaccinated in a very short period of time, especially low-income countries. So some discussion focused on that challenge. So in that discussion, the World Bank talked about the $160 billion that we are providing as a lending, as a technical assistance, as procurement of vaccines, also logistics and delivery. So the World Bank is not only providing financing, but also providing support on logistics and delivery of services. And this was very well received by Özlem Türeci and Uğur Şahin. And this is a great start for a partnership because our managing director was there, vice presidents were there, and this event triggered an immediate action from their side. And now they are currently discussing the better ways of producing more vaccines and also delivering in a speedy way to low-income countries. So we found this event very rewarding.
Good. So did we. And like I said, we are going to support the good message of the World Bank Professionals, Turkish Professionals Association, and of Doctors Türeci and Şahin. You said there's 250 Turkish employees in the World Bank, and the World Bank is, I think, 4 entities. You have the World Bank, MIGA, IFC, and IMF. Is there a concentration in one of the divisions, or is it evenly spread apart? And a little bit more about the diversity of the World Bank Turkish American professionals. Where are they from, and a little bit of the personality of the group. That would be good to hear.
They're great professionals. So majority of them are at the World Bank and IFC. We have also local offices. We have a local office in Ankara. We have an IFC office in Istanbul. And we have country offices all over the world. And this number includes all Turkish staff working in IFC, MIGA, World Bank, IMF. Most of them are economists, but as I said, we also have lawyers, engineers, energy specialists, transport specialists. So this is a great group of professionals.
Very good. And how is the diversity among the group?
I looked at that when I was the chair of the association. So at that time, the women had the higher share.
Oh.
So I focused more on career development of the staff who are already in the bank. So getting them to higher level positions, decision-making positions, but also attracting more young professionals. Because when I looked at the numbers at that time, I saw that the short-term consultants numbers were much higher than the open-ended staff.
Yes.
So that's something I wanted to correct. This was one of the discussions I had with HR, and the second one was career development of the staff who are already in the bank.
You know, when first of all, we at TASC are very proud of the diversity within the TASC team. We were talking earlier before the show. The TASC social media and TV teams are about 50% women, and what we support is that when we support equal opportunity, the best minds, hearts, capabilities come to the forefront, and in many respects we're indebted to our policy of equal opportunity for the great leaps in advancement that TASCTV is making. And obviously that is reflecting also in the World Bank's Turkish American Professionals Association with the work you're doing. But back to your life a little bit, Sibel. How did you become interested in economics? And I ask you this because my undergraduate degree is economics as well. And although my graduate degree is international law and federal law is what I am working on in my projects. So yeah, tell us about, back again to role modeling. How did you become interested in economics, and how did that interest carry you forward?
So I always had a great interest in participating in thought leadership towards finding solutions to global problems such as poverty, inequality. And I remember when I was studying economics in my 20s, I used to say I will go work at the World Bank. And I was in Ankara at that time doing my graduate degree. It's the best place to make an impact. So I would highly recommend to Turkish economists, especially Turkish women. It's a great place to work, and it's a great organization. So we have so many committed people from all around the world, more than 150 countries, and making a difference in developing countries every day. Very interesting topics, very interesting countries to work on. I'm also interested in these Turkish associations' work because it gives us a chance to contribute to our country's development in some capacity. So that's why I'm very active. I'm talking to professionals here. I'm talking to private sector leaders, public sector leaders, academia in Turkey. So I really enjoy these intellectual discussions, and I always did. So even with my family, with my sister, we still do. We talk about the issues, and we discuss. And I find it very interesting, and I continue it here. And I organize events, and I provide input to ongoing work, both here and also in Turkey. Because I think being here, we have the opportunity to gain a global perspective. Because I worked in 3 different continents. I worked as country economist, working directly with central bank governors, ministers of finance in a lot of countries, and so many different country settings, including upper middle income or fragile states. And this provides a lot of good experience and background because based on analytical work, you gain the expertise of providing refined policy advice to countries. You also have the opportunity to see what works and what doesn't work. Mm. So looking globally from here, we had the opportunity to see lessons learned. So when I advise a government official next time, I know in some settings, some economic policy reform didn't work. So I have the opportunity to advise them or what works in terms of fiscal policies, trade policies on the way forward. This is where my interest is.
Yes. Are the central banks that you work with and the ministries of finance, how are they receptive? Are they working with you because they do want the World Bank support, and the World Bank has certain criteria, and then you have to meet up at those points in collaboration. And so how is the receptivity and collaboration would you describe?
We work in great partnership with our member states. For example, when I was the country economist for Iraq, I was working both with Baghdad government and the Erbil government. For Baghdad government, I did the World Bank largest lending operation at that time. It was $1.2 billion, and we increased it to 1.9 with the parallel financing from other international partners. So as you said, it comes with prior actions, the economic reforms that the country needs to implement. And on substance of those reforms, we work jointly with the IMF as World Bank economists, and we have dialogue with the government, and we discuss what is the issue and what are the proposed policy recommendations to address this issue. And I was very lucky with my dialogue with the authorities because we didn't have any problem. They agreed because, for example, in the case of Iraq, the problem was with the high recurrent spending of the government. So the policy question was, in the good old times when the oil prices were high, there was a lot of spending on subsidies and recurrent administrative type of budget. But then it didn't allow government to do saving from there and direct it towards capital investment spending. So that was an issue. To address that, in our lending operation, we offered a number of prior actions to the government which they welcomed, and one of them was on the saving side, saving on ineffective, inefficient public spending, and then how to channel it to productive investment areas. And that worked very well. And also we offered prior actions on climate change and environmental issues. For example, the gas flaring issue. So, and having fiscal savings from there and investing on productive sectors.
Right. I'm getting now questions on my iPhone, very interesting questions. So sometimes I'm looking at the iPhone, okay, which question am I going to ask? And so there's definitely interest in a macro look at the United States, and as well as a macroeconomic look at Turkey. And of course, the trade goals between the two countries, I think, are about 100 billion at this moment. and there are various initiatives between Turkish business groups and associations and U.S., such as the Turkish Union of Chambers of Commerce takes a big role leading that effort. So looking at again from a personal level, we investors, we work in America, we pay our taxes, we have some money left over, and then we put it into investment accounts. And now banks are telling us that we should be looking not even close to a V recovery, not close to a U recovery, a gradual recovery, but what they're characterizing as L recovery, which is it's going to be bad for a long time. And to such an extent, Sibel, is that when we invest in banks, in the stock market, our returns have been tiny compared to the past. And so I did some research, and they're saying, well, we're not declaring the revenues. We are reinvesting the revenue into emergency funds because we anticipate a lot of foreclosures, a lot of people not being able to pay their mortgages. So this is the outlook I'm getting from the banking people, the private banking people that I deal with as a lawyer. And so we're, of course, reallocating our stocks investments accordingly, so we don't lose too much money, so we can have a softer fall, and that also means a slower recovery in the long term, but it's more conservative. So what's your outlook on, and this is to some extent COVID based as well, so what's your outlook on, macro outlook on the U.S.?
You're right with the L-shaped recovery. This is what the estimates and projections from the World Bank show. The challenges are enormous. We are experiencing the most severe global recession of past 150 years. So this is the worst recession in 150 years. And the US economy contracted by 3.6% in 2020. So there was a negative growth. So the baseline is here. So where do we go from here? The economic activity started to pick up in the third quarter. And we expect that next year and the following year, there will be around 3.3, 3.5 economic growth, which also explains your L-shape projection. But it will not pick up immediately in the medium term. But in the short run, next year and the following year, there will be some improvement because the US made substantial fiscal support to households, as you know. So there were direct transfers. Right. And that contributed to the initial rebound. And also in this second half of this year, according to World Bank projections, we expect that economic activities will be strengthened after June. Mm-hmm. And this will be because of the improved COVID management and also opening some economic activities in various states. However, for 2022, although we see a economic growth projection of 3.3, 3.5, this is not actually something to celebrate because we will still remain 5 percentage points below the pre-pandemic trends. What would have happened if we didn't have the crisis? And this means $4.7 trillion of loss. So there is a huge opportunity cost. And the economic cost is very high, so we will try to catch up in the coming years. And it will...
So the pandemic enhanced the negative trend. Even if we didn't have a pandemic, we would still be about 5% less than we were pre-pandemic, is what I'm understanding you're saying.
Yes, and the good news for the US is that because compared to OECD countries and the Eurozone, because although we had a negative growth, it was still better than OECD and Europe. The reason is that US is much reliant on external demand than many. It's much less reliant compared to Germany or Japan. So this helps to shelter the US economy from external shocks. And also US economy is largely driven by consumer spending, which is 70% of GDP. So you can actually have economic growth through consumer spending.
Yes. I do notice we spend a lot, and the credit card debts of the average American are huge. And the average American savings is pitifully low for a huge portion of our population. It's at about $1,600. So those direct payments are like Christmas. Our people have not, when I say our people, our population, our American population has never seen gifts amounts that big before, whatever it is, $1,200, per family. So of course there will be a price to this. Even when I get my Social Security benefit statements, there's an asterisk that, it says if you retire at 65, you will get this much money per month. Don't forget you will be taxed on it too, so it's actually a double tax. And then and they say, but we look forward to, or we hope to pay this to you in the future when you're elderly, but just in case you might want to invest in private retirement funds. Don't rely on us. Don't rely on your government. Is the asterisk message to us? So the price of the short-term relief may be a long-term burden on my children, on the children of America, at least in their midlives. So we are concerned about that. We also, I see we purchase a lot from abroad as well, and we sell to ourselves. In America, the products from China are vast. Had a party for my daughter at the party store here in Maryland. Everything was made in China. The little U.S. flags that go on the cakes and stuff like that, everything was made in China. So can you comment on what's the best approach for the United States? I think we're conflicted on China. Do you believe in the long-term effect of sanctions or BDS, boycott, divestment, sanctions, trade embargoes? Does this help the American economy? Does it? I'm not going to talk about foreign policy. My position, it's really not that effective in foreign policy. But will this kind of negative approach to other countries in trade affect us? Similarly, in California, there's a law being considered to divest California pension funds from Turkey. One of the best performing elements in the portfolio. The portfolio manager is saying that's a stupid idea, but there's a negative politic behind it that's saying, who cares if we're going to mess up the pension funds of the California public servant? So I didn't want to go to the interrelation of economies in the world when we discuss macroeconomics.
Economic coordination and collaboration internationally, it's very important, and economic literature shows us clearly that with a group of countries you grow faster than single country efforts. So we saw the great examples in the past where you have economic collaboration areas, and these countries grew faster, acting together. And there needs to be policy measures on economics, trade, to eliminate behind-the-border barriers so private sector can flourish and trade can increase. So when we look at the current situation now, last year, the international trade declined close to 10%. So negative 10%. For international trade, this is a very bad situation, and with the Biden administration, we are getting signals that there will be a focus on international collaboration. Although we still don't see any change with the tariffs between U.S. and China, so the situation is still the same. When we look at tariff rates, but we are expecting that with this administration, there will be more emphasis on global collaboration, international trade, coordination regionally and globally, because this will be the source of growth. The baseline, so to take us from this crisis, we need a huge effort globally. So this can't be based on single country approaches, but we need a global effort because we saw that already in 2020, 120 million more people were pushed into extreme poverty. This is in addition to the number of poor people before 2020. So additional 120 million people pushed into poverty, and this year we are expecting that this number will increase to 150 million. So this is a huge effect. Also, 250 million jobs were lost around the world. So to correct these issues, we need more emphasis on international trade and coordination and collaboration between countries.
Is the 150 million that have been pushed into poverty, how would you distribute that among what we consider wealthy and less wealthy countries?
It's affecting mostly low-income countries. For example, Southeast Asia. And in Asia, we talk about billions of people, population, and unfortunately, this is affecting vulnerable groups, population groups more. So when we give the policy advice to governments from the World Bank side, we always bring a social protection measures. We provide them with the prior actions on economic reform, ranging from trade to fiscal to energy sector reforms, but we always bring social protection and social safety net measures because there will be a lot of vulnerable groups that will be affected from those economic measures in those countries. And we quantify those before we start the project and operations. So if we are proposing an energy sector reforms, for example, cut in electricity sector tariffs and something that will affect the people, we propose an in-depth assessment of how this should be distributed between the households, corporates, and governments. So we always look at distribution impact. And now, more recently, welfare economics is becoming more important because inequality is increasing and vulnerable groups are becoming more are getting more pushed into extreme poverty. So this is something the World Bank puts a lot of emphasis. So our corporate priorities are first poverty reduction, but also building back better. So we are not talking about bring the economies back to what it was before the pandemic, but we are saying that building back better and greener. So that brings also climate change and environmental type of reforms together.
I was just going to ask you that. Now, there is better, but the greener part is about everyone on Earth. And no one can escape that unless they are supposedly wanting to live in space or something. But even that won't be greener. But what is the World Bank's approach to we're helping governments deal with climate change and global warming, the impact of that on quality of life, not just now, but down the line, 30, 50, 75 years?
We have the climate change group at the World Bank, and they are looking very closely what is happening and what should be the mitigation measures. And in 2 weeks, there will be a new report from the World Bank proposing a way forward. And this is one of our corporate priorities, and I'm the focal point in our region for climate change and women empowerment, and I closely follow up. But also Europe is coming up with great work. So a month ago, I was invited to Council of Europe hearing to the Parliamentary Assembly, and I made a presentation to European parliamentarians on the climate change economics. So they are currently writing a report on future proposed legal measures to mitigate climate change effects, and the report will be out in a month. This is the Parliamentary Assembly, mostly organized by lawyers from the MPs. But to propose that, first they wanted to know the analytical background, economic background, what is the economic cost, and what are the opportunity costs. That's why they invited me. So I discussed with them, this is how much a country is losing when you don't take any action. And this is the global impact. This is the impact on your own country. So this is, we quantified all the potential impact if you don't do anything between now and 2050, for example. And it was, it's very powerful when we share these key messages with data. Then the European parliamentarians understand what will happen in the next 10, 20, 30 years, so they can design the measures in a way that doesn't let these things happen. So the report will be mainly on the legal framework. So what will be the legal actions that countries should bring? Mm-hmm. But from the World Bank side, we are helping on the economics of this work. So, for example, dropping the coal subsidies on coal, for example, or bringing tariffs to companies that use damaging gas to environment. So it's more about green gas emission and related economic impact and the proposed measures.
What's the impact of less wealthy countries on the climate, on these problems, versus more wealthy countries? And how are we able to distribute responsibility according to those proportions in World Bank policy?
There are actually top 10 big economies that contribute maybe 80% of the pollution globally. So we are proposing also to our European counterparts that the focus should be on these specific countries and these specific sectors. For example, high population countries, you cannot compare India with the Maldives in Southeast Asia in terms of damaging the climate. So where you have very large population, you have the pollution, and also on industry side, you need large investments to make sure that the new infrastructure are greener and environment friendly. So our advice is to focus specifically on the issues, on the countries and also sectors.
That's good. That's smart. I want to turn a little bit to Turkey. All right. So let's look at a macroeconomic view of Turkey and also U.S.-Turkish economic relations. Turkey reported a 1.8 GDP growth in 2020. And independent sources are elevating Turkey's financial rating. What is driving this growth, and what are the opportunities and challenges ahead for Turkey in general in this economy?
It was the credit expansion in Turkey. So Turkey avoided the growth contraction. And as you said, the growth was 1.8% in 2020. In the previous year, 2019, it was 0.9%. And also coming years, 21 and 22, we expect around 5% economic growth based on the January projections of the World Bank. So this is due to substantial expansion in credit in the Turkish economy, because as you remember, lending by state banks was doubled to mitigate the initial impact of the crisis. It all started during the third quarter of 2020, as restrictions on businesses, travel, transport, personal mobility were relaxed. Also, fiscal and monetary policy were both loosened. And with this, the government did a credit boom. And this is what we see as the engine of this recent economic growth numbers. Again, the main driver was household consumption. It's 60% of GDP in Turkey. So with the monetary expansion, fiscal expansion, it's well expected. And so household consumption is one of the major drivers of this recent growth. And also there was because of the loosening of macroprudential regulations, government extended credit guarantees, and we saw the impact. But now the central bank is prioritizing more price stability this year. So that means that we can expect the opposite. So I don't think we will see monetary policy expansion this year.
Not this year. So how would you, we did the L recovery analysis for the U.S. Do you see an L recovery type situation for Turkey? And I and I do want to go to U.S. Turkish economic relations. So talk about that as well.
Yes, so it seems like Turkish economic growth will pick up more quickly, because for U.S. we are expecting around 3.5, but for Turkey we are expecting 5%. It's very high also compared to the Eurozone and also the U.S. But the focus should be on the real sector of the economy. So when we look at the opportunities, also the challenges we know already. So there's the inflationary pressures and the high financing needs. But personally, what I think is opportunities are more important, because there are huge untapped potentials in Turkey. In all sectors of the economy. We quantified this in our report, A New Levant, which looked at the economies of 7 countries in the region, including Turkey, and quantified where are the untapped potentials in every sector, goods sector, services sectors, and where are the investment potentials, major multi-billion-dollar investment potentials in every sector of the economy which city exactly, from which country, between which country to which country. And so it was very specific, proposing that what should be done on the real sector of the economy. When I read the articles about Turkish economy, I see the focus more on monetary policy and fiscal policy. Of course, recently the government is doing this in a very great professional way, but also there should be a focus on the real sector of the economy, because you can't fix the economic inequality through only with monetary policy, only with fiscal policy. So it has to be done together, but also I see very little discussion on the real sectors. So where are the potentials? Currently, people think that the pie is very small, and this is what we work with, but actually the pie is much larger, but we are not using those potentials. So this work identified where specifically exactly those potentials are in energy sector, financial services, logistics, customs, trade, transport, ICT areas, health services areas. So I think it will be advisable to build on this, and for the country to really think, taking into consideration the global prices and the projections on the way forward, where we see the competitiveness is, and invest on those productive areas and increase the exports through focusing on the real sectors.
So there's a lot of important work to do for groups like the Turkish Union of Chamber of Commerce to discuss these real economic opportunities and in the sectors that are perhaps under-tapped and required to be much better utilized. And also for the various Turkish American business associations like the Development Council of Urterzoğlu. I think there's a lot of work for them to do. Does the World Bank reach out? Let me put it this way. Does the World Bank Turkish American Professionals Association reach out to these business organizations?
Yes, we do organize events with the business associations and business leaders. And also under the new Levant work, we talk to U.S. Chamber of Commerce and other chambers in the region. So TASC is doing a great job in identifying where those potential sectors are for U.S. and Turkey. I think this should be expanded for Turkey, including how we grow in the region in a faster and export-oriented way. So for the U.S. and Turkey, as you said, there's $100 billion target. And right. Currently, I think the trade volume was in 2019, it was around 25. So we need to increase it 4 times. And the TASC already identified five sectors that has the potential between the trade for trade between U.S. and Turkey. These are automotive parts, textile, household appliances, building materials, and furniture. And they think that these industries will be the engine of growth of exports to the U.S. And I think this should be expanded for the whole Turkish economy, taking into consideration other potential trade partners, including the ones in the region. And what is the World Bank doing? The bank has a big program in the bank. Since 2018, Turkey's the lending operations to Turkey amounted to $4 billion. And the sectors included energy sector, access to finance, municipal development, disaster risk resilience, and the water sector. Also, IFC invested close to 1 billion in Turkey only last year. So there's a lot of support from international partners. And Turkey's location also provides a great access to markets, because we have a customs union with EU, and we have to do all these association agreements with the European countries. And the large markets like in Asia, for example, we are talking about billions of people, actually have the potential to reach these markets through Turkey and vice versa, which will be a win-win for all countries involved.
Thanks for, I was going to come to you, beat me to it, but the Turkish American or U.S. Turkish Economic Council, TASC, is of course leading the effort. And they're doing great work. They're setting up a trade center in Chicago and exploring other areas to set up centers, such as in Maryland. And as TASC, we do support economic empowerment of the Turkish American community, but also U.S.-Turkish economic relations. So we will be facilitating the best we can those developments from the Turkish American community's perspective. I would like to mention that grassroots in economic relations is very important. Of course, it's business person to business person. You know, they're selling and buying. But there's the Turkish American communities engaged in what they call the sister state program. And Maryland leads that at this moment for the U.S. Turkish sister states, quite different than sister cities. Sister state is more than cultural, and it goes beyond cultural exchange. It goes into education, economics, business. And so with the Maryland sister state program, we have been doing great programs between, for example, the education sector in Maryland and the Turkish educational sector in the Istanbul region, starting with CoChair, going all the way up to Istanbul, and with 5 universities, setting them up with for a collaboration with private universities in Maryland. We think that the sister state program should be implemented in all the states, and all the states should get a province in Turkey to work with. Our second province we're thinking about in Maryland, and this is to some extent it has to do with the painting behind you, is the Izmir region. We have reached out to Izmir and the Aegean, Western Aegean region of Turkey for a Maryland sister state program. And I think the painting behind you is of Kuşadası, just south.
That's right. Yes.
And you were telling me your aunt painted it.
Yes, she's a great artist, and we have a summer house there. She also has a summer house there, and this is a great work from her.
What's her name?
Meryem.
Meryem. Great. Well, we congratulate Meryem. We look forward to having Meryem Hanım on our TASCTV when we have a great program called Turkish Coffee Hour, Turkish Tea Hour. Oya Bain leads it, and we'd love to have her on that program. Sibel Kulaksız, we thank you very much for joining TASC Roots TV today. It was very educational to our audience. We are supportive of civil society empowerment in the Turkish American community, and we are very supportive of the empowerment of women this important month. We're calling Women's Empowerment Month. You are a role model. Lots of young women and girls will be watching your program. It will be viewed right now. It is live on TASCTV on digital streaming throughout the nation. And we thank again Uyanık TV for permitting this on their program. Constantly, we will reach out to Turkish American community, and they will watch it on that. And the program will be rerun as well for more people to watch if they could not watch at this moment. I would like to thank Sibel Kulaksız today. I want to thank everyone for joining us at TASC Roots TV on TASCTV. We are now reaching over 1 million viewers a month and talking about Turkish American communities' empowerment in all walks of life. We embrace everyone in full diversity, lifestyles, religiosity, religion, political views. We have so much more in common than we don't, and that is our principle. We believe in the Samsun principle. When Atatürk landed in Samsun, he embraced everybody in the independence movement of the Turkish people. And we want to embrace everyone again in America for the civic empowerment of Turkish Americans. Thank you, Sibel. And we look forward to welcoming you again on TASCTV.
Thank you, Gunay, for this great discussion. I very much enjoyed it. And congratulations with the great work.
Thank you. Congratulations to the Turkish American Professionals Association at the World Bank. You're doing great work.